गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुः साक्षात् परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. Okay. We have Purvapakshi was concluded. The point was that pramanas, pramatrutvam and all the vyavahara is due to avidya, is within the realm of avidya. So that was the main point Siddhanti was making. Now Purvapakshi said that no. What Purvapakshi said that no, it is not true. So what Purvapakshi says, now I don't have to repeat it. Swamiji himself is summarizing. We discussed in, I think, more than 2 weeks, 3 or 4 sessions we discussed. What we discussed about Purvapakshi, Swamiji himself is summarizing it. Now I don't want to repeat it. I read directly. There you will get everything. Now 40th point, the 40 passage begins, Avidya Sadbhava Pradarshana Granthavataraha. Now the Grantha text begins. Text comes in. Avatara means the text Adhyasa Bhashya comes in to show how every Vyavahara is due to Avidya. Now Swamiji's comment, Atha Samadhanam Vaktumarapate. A reply to Purvapakshi is given here. Uchyate. Adhyasa Bhashyadalli see Uchyate. Let me see the Adhyasa. I just repeat that Bhashya statement. Katham punaha avidyavad vishayani pratyakshadini pramanani shastrani cha. How can you say that the pratyakshadi pramana and the shastriya pramana presuppose avidya, function within the realm of avidya? How can you say that? This was Purvapakshi. Siddhanti starts his reply by saying Uchyate. Yes, here I reply. So what he replies will come. Now on this, what Swamiji's comment is, we'll go to the comment of Swamiji. On the 40th point, coming to the Swamiji's Vyakhyanam, Ayam Bhavaha. This is the idea of Purvapakshi and Siddhanti. Natavat adhyasa sadbhave shanka samunmishati. Siddhanti says that you cannot have a doubt. Nobody can have a doubt regarding the adhyasa. Whether adhyasa is there or not, nobody can have any doubt because it is so obvious. What he means to say is, it is so obvious that doubt is not possible. Whether adhyasa is there or not, because if adhyasa were not there in your anubhava, how will you prove it? If adhyasa is not, because we are only, it is something like a patient who goes to a doctor. If he is suffering from some pain or something, then the pain is visible already. If he doesn't have a pain, then what can doctor do? Will doctor create a pain and give the medicine? That some allopathic doctors do. Present days, the hospitals are doing that. Some hospitals, at least not all doctors, but some of them. So, if the adhyasa is not there, then there is no samsara, no question at all. Since we are suffering from samsara, adhyasa is already there. Obviously there, because samsara is there only due to misunderstanding. Otherwise there would not have been any samsara. So, natavat, therefore the doubt is not about presence of adhyasa. The doubt is not about adhyasa, because nobody can have a doubt. It is obviously there. Natavat adhyasa sadbhave shanka samunmishati. Just a minute, what the this idea no doubt can possibly arise regarding the very existence of superimposition, very much underlying, pervading all. See, because adhyasa is not a something to be logically proven. See, why no doubt can rise regarding adhyasa? See the good point. Why no doubt can rise or no doubt? Because all doubts are only within the realm of thinking. Thinking means mind which thinks logically, reasonably. It finds that it is illogical. Then it questions, how can such a thing be possible? The doubt is about possibility alone, or it is going against your logic. If you feel that it is going against your logic, then you put a question, how can be like that? How? The doubt means not convinced. What does the doubt mean? Doubt means not being convinced. Now, we are not logically convincing a person of adhyasa. See, this is also a good point. Difference between Swamiji's prakriya, that is Shankara's prakriya, and Vyakyanakara's prakriya. In Vyakyanakara's prakriya, they want to prove Mula Vidya by logic, because it must be there. It must be there. It is necessary to be there, because you need their Mula Vidya was established by the logical necessity. If suppose somebody argues logically in a different way, he can explain it in a different way without a need of Mula Vidya, then the logic turns in different direction, isn't it? If you want to prove a certain theory by logic, that means logical necessity, the probability, logical necessity. By logic, if you want to prove certain theory, certain existence of certain things, then somebody who is more clever or intelligent, he may use his own arguments, he may give his own logic and try to explain it differently, and may say, without the need of your Mula Vidya, or by accepting something else, he may prove it. So here we are not, as Mula Vidya is established through logic, we are not trying to establish anything logically. Therefore, Shanka Nasamunmishati. Here, when Swamiji says a doubt possibly cannot arise, he only means that doubt is possible only in a matter of conviction. I have a doubt means I am not, doubt means not being convinced, isn't it? Doubt means not being convinced. Now we are not trying to explain or prove adhyasa so that the question of convinced or not convinced doesn't arise. The question of being convinced or not being convinced doesn't arise. See, this is the point. So, question of convinced or not being convinced doesn't arise. A doubt possibly does not arise. Doubt possibly does not arise. What does it mean? See, natavat adhyasa sadbhave shanka samunmishati. No room for adhyasa. What does he mean? No room for a doubt, sorry. No room for a doubt about adhyasa. Because it is not a matter of being convinced or not convinced. Okay. See, this is the difference. People ask, what is the difference between prakriya? What is the difference? You see, this is the difference. They are trying to convince you of Mula Vidya. And if you are not convinced, then the dispute arises. Okay. Now we say, Swamiji's thing is, Swamiji caught the Shankara's vision. It is rare to find. You read so many books in the last few centuries, nowhere you find such a clear and direct Vedanta as Sachidananda Swamiji presents. So therefore, presence of Adhyasa is not a matter to be convinced or not convinced. That question, that doubt has no room to rise, because a doubt arises if you are not convinced. If you are convinced, no doubt arises. See? If you are convinced, no doubt. If you are not convinced, then doubt arises. Okay. Now Swamiji says here, Shanka nasamun mishati. See, this one sentence, the Sanskrit word is a very cryptic language, Sanskrit. Just one small word explains so many things in it. I think translation, somebody wanted bare translation. I tell you, bare translation will not do justice to it. Because in Sanskrit or in Swamiji's writings, there are many deeper implications. All those implications have to be brought out. If you simply say bare translation, you will get only word meaning. You won't get the implications there. So Shanka nasamun mishati regarding Adhyasa. Why? Simply be told, first you understand the very nature of Sandeha, nature of doubt. Nature of doubt is, if you are convinced, no doubt. If you are not convinced, there is a doubt. That means the question of doubt or not, no doubt, depends upon convinced or not. Now, what is conviction? See, the point by point, it becomes simple. It is very simple. What is being convinced? What is being convinced? If you explain logically, if your mind feels that yes, it is logically correct, then you are convinced, isn't it? Being convinced of the logical explanation. Now, he says, Adhyasa is not a matter of logical explanation. That's all. Adhyasa is not in the field of logical explanation. Therefore, no question of being convinced or not convinced. So, no question of doubt, because you find it in your anubhava. What a beautiful thing, see? Swamiji says, you find it in your anubhava. That statement of Shankaracharya, always we say, Nahi anupapannam nama. What is a matter of experience? Na drushte na anupapannam nama. Yeah, this is the thing Shankaracharya always says. Drushte na anupapannam nama. There is no matter of impossibility. There is no question of possibility or impossibility. There is no question of accepting or not accepting. There is no question of probability or improbability. Logically acceptability, that is tenability we call them. There is no question of tenability or untenability regarding what is already a matter of your experience. See, nahi drushte anupapannam nama. This is the beautiful statement of Shankara. I think to understand Shankaras, shall I tell you, it may look exaggeration for you. You need only Sachidananda Swamiji. Without Sachidananda Swamiji, it is impossible to understand Shankara. Swamiji is another Shankaracharya. I think you may feel that I am too much exaggerating, but I tell you, in my life, I understood only from Swamiji. It is his blessing alone, it is his grace alone, whatever little I understand. Without that, I think impossible to understand. We read lot of books, heard number of Swamis, number of Gurus, number of scholars, but none of them touched this direct anubhava. Partly they touch, but partly in certain areas, they go by logic. Assumptions and logic, certain area at least. Of course, since they are also Advaitins, many places they also talk of Anubhava, but some places. But Shankara or Swamiji go throughout by Anubhava. Nothing to be accepted just by logic, nothing to be accepted as a theory. Just by logic means a theory. Nothing should be accepted as a theory only on the strength of arguments. Everything has to be directly pointed out in your Anubhava. That is his greatness. I don't know whether to call greatness or not. It is a fact, bare fact of life, that's all. You may not You may not understand, you may take some more time to understand, but the fact is fact, that's all. It's just there. So he's only pointing out, Shankara got a right tradition of Advaita. His Govindapada, Gaudapada, or even earlier gurus, they have got a very perfect tradition. That Advaita tradition, luckily Shankaracharya came in, was a perfect tradition. And Shankara himself is personally a very sharp person, very intelligent. Intelligent is not in your logical capacity, logical thinking, but looking at Anubhava directly, not being influenced by any argument or any other things, just directly looking at Anubhava. That is his speciality. A simple, straightly taking Anubhava. Sachidananda Swamiji also had such a thing right from his childhood. Because whatever gurus taught, he took it directly Anubhava. He did not went by theories, concepts, and like that, whether he is convinced or not. He looked at directly Anubhava. That's why when his Guruji, Swamiji says in his autobiography is in Kannada, there is some abridged biography written in English, translated into English by somebody, but his complete autobiography, what he says is, when he heard from his Guru, Avidya, he took it directly Adhyasa alone. Nobody need to do that. Nobody need to tell him. When Guruji told Avidya, he took it directly Adhyasa. How? That is, I think, his own Purvajanma Samskara, or it his own sharpness, his own natural inclination, just like Shankara, going by Anubhava. Going by Anubhava. In fact, most of us go by Anubhava, but again, out of our respect for Guruji and tradition, we give a benefit of doubt. Probably they may be right. Then we become over-conditioned by logic. Over-conditioned to see everything through logic alone. That means you have to be convinced through logic, then only you accept its tenability. Otherwise, you feel it is untenable. Now, we think that Vedanta is a logical thing. You have to explain logically and convince it logically. This is again, we use logic, but it is not a logical matter. Matter to be logically convinced. Note this point. Vedanta uses logic. Vedanta uses logic. Note this point. But not to be convinced by logic. Not to be convinced. Convinced is a special term I am using. Convinced by logic. Logic is used to correct the wrong standpoint and show what is already in your Anubhava. It points out what is already in your Anubhava, and logic helps you to get to the right Anubhava. In fact, logic is used to correct our wrong angle of looking, that's all. Tarka parishuddhameva. Tarka is used here to do parishuddhi, not to prove. That's a point. Tarka parishuddhi. All this is discussed in Mula Vidya Nirasa also. Mula Vidya Nirasa is much more details. We were discussing in Bangalore, and then suddenly Corona came, and then the Bangalore classes are suspended. I think around 1 year. 1 year or around 1 year, yes, nearly 1 year. We stopped classes, so Mula Vidya classes are suspended. Otherwise, we would have continued Mula Vidya. Probably when Corona permits, Corona Devi goes away and permits, then we will continue Mula Vidya Nirasa. Or we don't know, after completing Sugama, if Corona doesn't permit us, or something else, some obstruction comes, I hope we will continue Mula Vidya Nirasa online only. Otherwise, that Bangalore is there for Mula Vidya Nirasa. Okay, so it is not to be convinced means not to be proven by logic as a logically tenable. Logically tenability. Logical tenability is not the point. Logic helps you from a wrong standpoint, to correct your wrong standpoint and to put you in a right standpoint of looking. That's all. And directly seeing is Anubhava. Logic is not proving Adhyasa. Your logic is helping you to correct your wrong standpoint, come to the right standpoint which Shastra is pointing out. So once your angle of looking is brought to the right place, right angle, right means proper. Once your angle of looking, your standpoint is brought to the right standpoint, you will see it there. So it has to be directly seen in Anubhava, not to be proven logically. Note the difference, the subtle difference. That's why we use logic, but it is not logical. This I tell you, people are unable to understand. Many people are unable to understand. And post-Shankarites use logic to explain through logic only. They use logic only to explain through logic and convince through logic. But in Shankaras and Sachidananda Swamiji, logic is brought not to explain a point, not to convince a point, but to correct your angle of looking. Once you are brought to the right angle of looking, you will find it directly. To find directly you find it in your Anubhava. That is Vedanta. Directly you find it. To help you to find in your Anubhava, logic helps. But not logic doesn't to prove it or convince it or establish it. Okay? Logic doesn't prove it or establish it or convince you. Okay? Convince you of it. See the difference? Because what is an idea, a logical idea, a logically provable idea, a logically tenable idea or a concept or a theory, that needs to be logically established. Adhyasa is not something to be proven. Mula Vidya requires logic. They say, there must be karana, there must be a root cause for adhyasa to take place. Otherwise, adhyasa would not happen. See, this is the logic. They are using logic to establish the presence of Mula Vidya, to show the necessity, inevitability of Mula Vidya. Without that, this is not possible. But if somebody, another intelligent man, capable of arguing, he will come and say, he would argue differently and he would show the necessity of accepting something else than Mula Vidya. Then there will be another theory like Mula Vidya. But if Mula Vidya is a matter of experience, no dispute. Because it is there directly in your Anubhava. What is a matter of experience, you don't have to prove it logically. You only have to point out. If you are looking at it in a wrong angle, if you are looking at it in a wrong place means Anubhava. If you are looking at it in your through wrong Anubhava, then you have to be brought to the right way of looking. So logic helps you to leave that wrong angle and come to the right angle of looking. That's all. And once you come to the right standpoint of looking, right angle of looking, you will find it there. Therefore, finding it directly in your Anubhava is Vedanta. This is what? If you have understood this, then you have come to Sachidananda Swamiji. You have understood Sachidananda Swamiji rightly. You have understood Shankara rightly. And you also understand the difference. People always ask, how is Swamiji different? People say Sachidananda Swamiji differed from that prevalent Vedanta. Don't say traditional Vedanta. Swamiji is also traditional. Don't call that Swamiji differed from traditional Vedanta, they call it. I don't say traditional Vedanta. Swamiji has not differed traditional Vedanta. Swamiji in fact follows traditional Vedanta. It is a prevalent Vedanta. More prevalent. It is less, Swamiji's is less prevalent, but compared to in a prevalent Vedanta, Swamiji looks different. But you can't say Swamiji is untraditional. Swamiji follows tradition. So, okay, so compared to that prevalent Vedanta, Swamiji, they say, we heard that Swamiji is different, explains differently. What is the difference? I have been telling in all my classes, every class I touch it. Somehow people are missing, unable to understand, I don't know. Again and again I tell in the classes. In every class, in most of the points, we tell the subtle differences. I think some people are unable to see the difference, and they say, again they ask the question, Swamiji, what is the difference? Again they ask. After telling the difference, it doesn't look like a difference at all. They say all are same. You require a lot of subtle mind. Very, very subtle. It requires an antarmukhata mind. Vairagya you require. Indriya nigraha, mano nigraha. See the subtle difference between them. It is not a category to be established by as a logical necessity. Out of a logical necessity, we are not establishing a theory that and be convincing you thus, because a theory requires a logical explanation, logical necessity, logical probability. But adhyasa is not that. That we have seen before, and again point has come. Adhyasa Bhashya is a greatness of Shankara's. You read just that, your whole vision, your way of looking, your thinking, everything changes. In fact, you are not what you are totally a different person. Totally a different person. Because directly look at Anubhava. Oh, we have to look at Anubhava, that is Vedanta. Even this many people don't know. Just to see, look at means what? Find in your Anubhava. I think that's the right expression. You find it in your Anubhava, that's all. You find it, it is there. It is you, it is in your Anubhava. You find it. You are not proving the necessity of it logically. That means you only be convinced of its probability and necessity. This is logic. Finding it Anubhava is Anubhava. Okay. Logic does not prove adhyasa. Logic does not establish or convince you of its possibility or probability. Then what is it? It directly, there is adhyasa. See this good point. Natavad adhyasa sadbhave shanka samunmishati. I go slowly and also repeat. Because I have to, I think I told you before, I tell you once again. When you are listening alone as a single person. If you have understood, it is enough for you. For me, I have to explain to many people. Therefore, I have to repeat, go slowly, give examples again and again, show the subtle contrast, because I have responsibility towards many people, many listeners. For you understand, it is enough. For you, it looks that I understood. Why repeating unnecessarily? It may look for you. But I have to tell many people. I have to address. I have to consider many listeners. I have to keep them in mind. Therefore, I look repetitive, showing the subtle difference between them. Okay? So have some patience. If you have already understood, be relaxed. When a repetition, just say ignore it. Or you just see, enjoy as a time pass. Now anyway, you have to spend 1 hour with me. And after understanding, if I repeat it, the time will go waste, but you have to pay patience. There is nothing else to do. This we can't do, we can't help. You have to put up with little waste of time. Those who have understood. But those who have not understood, definitely the repetition is of great help, because the subtle differences are brought out. Therefore, you see, I read the sentence again. If you look at that Sanskrit statement of Swamiji, what an amazing statement. Natavad adhyasa sadbhave shanka samunmishati. This one sentence shows the depth of it. I think, shall I tell you? Who has understood Swamiji correctly? I have not met many people, direct disciples of Swamiji like Vittala Shastri, Kulakarni. I have not met them, but I am told they have got a right understanding. They have really gone to the depth of it and got the heart of Swamiji. But Lakshmikanta Sharma, who passed away recently, quite old man, Recently means just 1 year ago, 1.5, 2 years ago. I met him long before. Later he lost his memory, so we couldn't discuss with him. When he came of age, he lost his memory, so we couldn't discuss much, anything with him. But I say, among my gurus, he is alive now. Prabuddhananda is the one who understood Swamiji's prakriya. Every sentence, the depth of Swamiji's statement, he understands it. As you read it, you can see the depth of him. Amazing depth of Swamiji. Every sentence he puts it, no word, single word goes waste. No single word goes waste. He touches a new depth in your life. He points out. That is his amazing tapas of Sachidanandendra Swamiji. Okay? Therefore, this depth of Swamiji, and who have understood and alive now, I say Prabuddhananda Swamiji. Now he is in Uttarkashi, you can't go anyway. But anyway, because of Corona, nobody can go. But you can listen to him on luckily because of Corona alone, he is giving his classes on online, on YouTube. Otherwise, you would not get in YouTube. You have to go and live in Delhi and listen to him. Luckily, you get them. And now for May, every April, May, he takes holiday. He loves to stay in Uttarkashi. So he has gone to Uttarkashi and lives there. Even June, in Delhi, June is a summer. June is a peak summer. Therefore, April, May, June, when the rain starts in July alone, he will come. So in South India, with May ends. Rainy season begins in the first week of June. But the June is the peak summer in Delhi and Uttar Pradesh and that area. Therefore, whole June he won't come. The peak he won't tolerate, that heat, terrible heat of Delhi. So he will come only in July. So April, May, June, 3 months you have holidays. July when he comes, you can listen to him again. But his talks are already available in YouTube, and I feel you all should listen to them. Those who want to listen Sachidanandendra Swamiji's depth and clarity, you will get from Prabuddhananda Swami. He is also equally such a sharp person. Directly touches your anubhava. The points out. Shastra points out and you find it. That's all. All logic is to help you to fall in that angle, fall in that standpoint. Once you come to the standpoint, you will find it directly within you. Okay, now we'll proceed. Natavad adhyasa sadbhave shanka samunmishati, because tasya sarvavida vyavahara vyapakatvena drishyamanatvat. Because adhyasa is to be found as a basis of all our vyavahara. Vyavahara means all our life activities, thoughts, speech, all our thoughts, all our concepts, all our experiences, all our worldly experiences, all our experiences, all our thoughts, all our activities, thinking, and then in Indriya experiences. It is underlying all our experiences. It is a common basis. Therefore, nobody can have a doubt about adhyasa, because without adhyasa you can't think, you can't see, you can't touch, you can't feel, and your mind, sense organs, body and everything is due to adhyasa. Therefore, when adhyasa is so common, so evident in your life, sarvavida vyavahara vyapakattena drishyamanatvat, it is found. Drishyamana means found. One subtle point here. Adhyasa is a matter of everybody's experience. Everybody's. Because that is the basis for all our vyavahara. Anything we generally pay attention to each vyavahara and miss that common underlying basis for all our vyavahara. Common underlying adhara for all our vyavahara, we miss it. Because generally our attention doesn't go towards adhyasa. Pramatru attention is always in prameya. Pramatru's attention is always in prameya. Pramata's attention is always in prameya. Therefore, he doesn't look at the basis of very pramatru and prameya. Adhyasa is a matter of everybody's experience. Note this point. I have not completed the sentence, half sentence I told. Adhyasa is a matter of experience in everybody. but it remains unrecognized until Guru teaches it. This is also a problem. When Guru points out what is already in your Anubhava, it is already there in Anubhava, Adhyasa. But until Guruji points out, you would never pay attention in that angle, in that level. Once Guruji points out, it is there. Yes, it is there. Yes, it is there. But why did I not know? That nobody knows. Until Guru points out, nobody can recognize. That is its human weakness, human nature. Human being cannot find out that there is Adhyasa as underlying all our activities, all our behavior, all our thoughts, all our experiences. It is the common basis of every Vyavahara. Adhyasa, all Vyavahara presupposes Adhyasa. After pointing out, yes, it is true. But before pointing out, nobody ever thinks of it, because it is not a matter of self-discovery or self-imagination. You can't go on watching and discover yourself. If Pramata is watching, I am Pramata. As a Pramata, I watch with my sense organs, mind, and think and see and feel and all that. It is Pramata who is seeing. See, it is the Pramata that who is seeing, watching, learning, understanding and everything. But Adhyasa is the basis of very Pramatrutvam. How can Pramata watch? That is a problem. Pramata himself cannot spot it by his way of routine watching or special watching. Pramata, by his routine watch, neither by his routine watching nor by his special watching, Pramata cannot discover, because it doesn't come under the watchfulness of Pramata. Note this point. Pramata's watchful cannot catch it. Adhyasa always escapes Pramata's watching. Adhyasa never comes. Adhyasa always escapes, never comes within the watching, or never comes within the watching of Pramata. Watchfulness, not watching, watchfulness, let us say, of Pramata. Okay? Pramata cannot be Antarmukha. Pramata's attention is always on Prameya. Because if he doesn't pay attention to Prameya, he won't be Pramata. The way Paranchikani Vetrunat Swayambhu Tasmat Parang Pashyatinantaratman. Kathopanishad says, see, Pramata by his very nature always his attention is on Prameya. Because that's how you are made. That's how the world is made. That's how anybody, Pramata's attention is always on Prameya. If he doesn't pay attention to Prameya, Pramata ceases to exist as Pramata. Therefore, when Pramata is, his attention always in Prameya. Therefore, the natural Antarmukhatvam has to be awakened. That Shastra alone can touch it. Okay? When Shastra points out, look at your waking state. Waking as a state, whole state. Until Shastra points out, we never pay attention to that. That's why Guru and Shastra are directly God, we call them. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha. Guru means what? That one who points out. That pointing out is alone, Ishvara alone can do it. No, humanly it's impossible. If a human Guru is teaching, he is only a nimitta. Through him, it is that Guru, that Paramatma alone is teaching us. Therefore, this discovery of Adhyasa, discovery means finding Adhyasa in your life, is not possible without Guru pointing out. Adhyasa is there, but somebody has to point out. Being pointed out, you will come to discover, it is there, yes. Okay? Therefore, sarvavida vyavahara vyapakatvena, it pervades. Pervades means it underlies. Vyapakatvena, underlies, or it is presupposed as a basis of all vyavahara. Okay. Atra akshepta tavat pramananam vyapakatvena. Okay. This vyapakatvena has to be properly translated. Underlying. Literally pervades. I have to add these footnotes in my translation. That's why I'm just making a small notes. Okay, so that I can add this in the translation. So, atra aksheptra tavat, the objector, one who is objecting, pramananam nirupanena, pramatru swarupa nirupanena cha, pramananam avidya vishayatvan nasti ityuktam. We saw in the last 2 or 3 or 4 classes what Purvapakshi tried to do. What Purvapakshi tried to say is, by examining the pramana, nirupanam in Sanskrit means examining. Nirupana means proving, we think. That is one translation, one meaning, particularly in our vernaculars in Kannada and Telugu. Nirupana means proving, but in Sanskrit, nirupana is examining. Proving also is there, but rarely used. Commonly used nirupanam means examining. Okay? Nirupanam means examining. Here, foreigners have an advantage. Shall I tell you why? Because they are learning Sanskrit newly. But Hindus, one advantage for Hindus of India is, many Sanskrit words they already have in their languages, so that way advantage is that many words they understand. But regarding certain words, the meaning, familiar meaning in their language, in Kannada, Telugu, Hindi is different, and the Sanskrit meaning in Sanskrit is different. Those places they get cheated, because we carry our own mother tongue meaning into Sanskrit. We try to see that meaning there, and that meaning is not found, it is a different meaning. But without knowing, we take it in that meaning only. We take it in that meaning only, and that creates a problem. You have to special. Therefore, when a particular word used in a different meaning in our mother tongue, in our local tongue, and Sanskrit has a different meaning, there we have to specifically point out. If you don't point out, you bring Kannada meaning here and then misunderstand. Okay, nirupanam is examining. So, tatra pramananam nirupanena, pramatru swarupa nirupanena. 2 things. By examining the nature of pramana, the functioning of pramana, you come to understand that there is already adhyasa. Another thing is pramatru swarupa nirupanena. By knowing the nature of pramatru. What is the nature of pramatru? Pramatru itself is a misunderstanding of Brahma. So the very nature of pramatru is, there is a misunderstanding. Not seeing the Sakshi, Sachidananda Sakshi. That is pramatru. The very nature of pramatru is a misunderstanding. Therefore, by watching the nature of pramatru, by examining the nature, by examining the nature of pramata, and examining the nature of pramana functioning, how pramanas function, you come to understand that pramananam avidyavad vishayatvan nasti. Purvapakshi says that by watching the pramana nature and also pramatru nature, adhyasa is not there. Purvapakshi told. That is his biggest mistake. That's why he is called Purvapakshi. Purvapakshi means he missed the point. One who missed the point is called Purvapakshi. Okay. He says, we already discussed, I just say in one or two sentences, the pramana reveals a new fact. So before you use pramana, you are ignorant of something. After using pramana, you come to discover a new fact. Therefore, you can't say pramana functioning is equal to being ignorant. You can't say using pramana is equal to being ignorant. Using pramana is equal to being ignorant. You can't say, because pramana makes you wiser. See, after using pramana makes you knowledgeable person. How can you say you will be ignorant? This is Purvapakshi's argument. This was, we studied it in the last 4 classes. Using pramana gives you knowledge. Okay? Using pramana, you become knowledgeable person. You come to gain jnanam. By using pramana, you won't remain ignorant. But how can you say that the very functioning of pramana exists within the realm of ignorance? This I can't accept, Purvapakshi told. See how Purvapakshi is taking. Second reason, the very nature of pramatru. Who is pramatru? Pramatru is the one who uses pramana and is also benefited by the pramana functioning. The beneficiary of pramana functioning. Okay? When pramana functions, it produces knowledge. Who gets the knowledge? Who gets the knowledge? Pramana gets? Prameya gets? No. It is the pramata who uses pramana and gains the knowledge as a result of pramana vyapara. As a result of using pramana, who gets the knowledge? Pramatru gets the knowledge. Therefore, you can't say pramatru is ignorant, because pramatru is the one who gets knowledge. How can you call him ignorant? This was Purvapakshi's argument. Okay? By examining the nature of pramana, by examining the nature of pramatru, I can't accept that pramana prameya vyavahara is within the realm of ignorance, Purvapakshi told. Now Siddhanti says, pramana pravritti parikshanena purusha pravritti parikshanena api avidya purasaratve matu sarvesham pramananam setsasiti vayam brumaha ubayatrapi ayuktameva vuktam tena. Siddhanti says that in these 2 points, Purvapakshi made a mistake. Ayuktam means what? He said something wrongly. Purvapakshi misunderstood. Because by examining the nature of pramana, by examining the nature of pramatru, you can prove clearly that there is adhyasa. Because without adhyasa, very pramana cannot function. The very pramatrutvam cannot exist. That there is a pramatrutvam itself proves that there is an adhyasa. See how Purvapakshi took it at another level. Now Siddhanti teaches him another level. So here Siddhanti is not logically proving that adhyasa is the basis for pramana vyavahara and pramatru nature. He is pointing out. That's all. He is pointing out. You look at it, you see, yes, pramatrutvam is possible only with adhyasa. Without adhyasa, no pramatrutvam possible. How this has to be explained in more detail. Explained means pointing out, again told. In pointing out what explanation is possible, again you point out, again you point out. You repeatedly point out from various angles until you come to see, that's all. You are not trying to prove logically. Repeatedly pointing out from different angles, different arguments, so that you are brought to the, your attention is brought to the right angle and you will come to see it, that's all. Adhyasa is the basis of all your vyavahara. Setsetiti vayam brumaha. Siddhanti says, by examining the nature of pramana, pramana pravritti, not nature, functioning of pramana. By examining the pramana pravritti, the functioning of pramana, and also functioning of purusha pravritti, the person's behavior. How does the person behave? Pravritti is behavior. Pramana pravritti and Purusha pravritti. Person's behavior and the Pramana's behavior. Behavior means the way of functioning. So by watching these things, we understand Pramata, Pramana, Prameya, Vyavahara, everything presupposes Adhyasa. That means within Adhyasa, when you are using Pramana, you are already in Adhyasa. If you say that you are a Pramatru, if you experience yourself as a Pramatru, then that is Adhyasa. You are already in Adhyasa. This shows that you are Pramatru nature, being of Pramatru nature. Pramatru nature means being Pramatru. Being a Pramata and also using Pramanas. These two prove that you are already in Adhyasa. Without Adhyasa, you will not use Pramana and you would not be Pramatru. Without Adhyasa, you would not be Pramatru, you would not have been Pramatru, and you would not have used Pramanas. Therefore, Tathacha Anavasara Ayam Upalambaha. Therefore, he says, your Purvapakshi unnecessarily taunting us, but what we are telling alone is right. How? How that Pramana, how the examination of Pramana Pravritti, how the examination of Pramatru nature proves Adhyasa. Proves means points out. Points out Adhyasa, we shall see in the next class. Okay? This small paragraph we have finished today. And 41st, we have finished the 40th topic, 40th that passage we have finished in the Sugama. 41st we will discuss in the next class. Okay? We'll stop with today. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Tatsat. Oh, okay.